Today we're going to dive into one of the biggest questions we can ever ask ourselves, all through the lens of a powerful spiritual guide called Who Am I by Shriram Sharma Acharya. So let me just ask you, right out of the gate, who are you? And I don't mean your name or what you do for a living. I mean, underneath all of that, who are you really? Because, the way this book sees it, all those answers we usually give, parent, friend, employee, all of it, they're just temporary labels. They describe what we do or who we are in relation to other people, but they don't even begin to touch the real, unchanging person at the core. And that brings us to our first big idea, the great identity mix-up. This is where the book says so much of our human struggle really comes from. Now, this is a pretty bold claim, right? The book is basically saying that the root of our anxiety, our fear, our suffering, it's not actually coming from the outside world. It's coming from an internal mistake, a simple case of mistaken identity. We've just forgotten who we truly are. So, if we're not our jobs or our bodies, then what are we? Well, the book introduces this central concept of the atma, which you can translate as the soul. And this, it says, is our real identity, the immortal I that exists completely independent of our physical body or what's happening in our lives. Okay, so if our true self is the atma, then what's the deal with our physical body? That's what we're getting into next, with a really cool metaphor. The body is a garment. And this quote just gets right to the point. I mean, think about it. You're not the clothes you're wearing, right? You use them, you take care of them, but you know they aren't you. The book argues that's exactly how we should see our bodies, as an instrument, a temporary outfit for our true self, the atma. The problem is we've gotten so obsessed with the clothes that we've totally forgotten about the person wearing them. And this chart just lays out the conflict perfectly. Take a look. The interests of the body, they're all external. Pleasure, stuff, status, and you can never get enough of it. But the interests of the soul are all internal. Things like virtue, self-discipline, inner peace. You can see how they're pulling in completely opposite directions. So here's the crucial part. When we spend our lives chasing the desires of the body, which the text calls these unsatiated animal traits, we might get a quick hit of pleasure, but we're actually starving our soul. The real food for our true self comes from virtuous acts, kindness, generosity, compassion. That's what leads to a real, lasting sense of peace and joy. Okay, so the body is a garment. Got it. But what about our mind? That brings us to section 3. The mind is a tool. The mind is the gateway. It's this incredibly sophisticated piece of equipment we use to explore our inner world and actually connect with the atma. But, and this is a really key distinction, the mind isn't the final destination. Just like the body, it's a powerful instrument that the soul uses. It's not the soul itself. The book actually breaks the mind down into 3 different layers. First, you've got the pravrita manas, or the animal mind. Think of this as your subconscious, the part that runs your body on autopilot and holds all those primal instincts. Then there's the prabhuta manas, which is your intelligent, logical mind, the one you use for analyzing things. But the highest level is the adhyatam manas, the spiritual mind. That's where all our best qualities, like compassion and love, actually come from. And this really puts it all into perspective. Your inner self, the soul, is the master. The body, and all 3 parts of the mind, they're its subjects. The whole goal is to stop being ruled by the tools and start living like the master who's supposed to be in charge of them. So how in the world do you actually make that shift? Well, section 4, Meeting Your True Self, uses this fantastic story to explain that moment of realization. So picture this. A little lion cub gets lost and ends up being raised by a flock of sheep. It grows up completely surrounded by them, learning all their habits. So now you have this powerful lion, but it acts just like a sheep. It eats grass, it bleats meekly, it's scared of everything. It has totally forgotten its own strength, its own majestic nature, because its whole world has convinced it that it's something it isn't. Then one day, it wanders down to a pond for a drink, and for the very first time, it sees its own reflection. It doesn't see a sheep looking back. It sees the powerful face of a lion. And in that 1 second, everything clicks. The illusion just shatters. And that is the whole point of the story. The book is saying that we are that lion. We've been raised in this material world that tells us we're the body, the ego, the sheep. The journey of self-realization is that exact moment of seeing our true reflection, the atma, the immortal soul, and finally reclaiming the power that was ours all along. But it doesn't stop there. We're about to take this one step further and zoom all the way out. The final section brings this realization to its ultimate conclusion: I am the universe. Check out this next analogy. Imagine a tortoise sitting in a huge, flowing river. The water that's touching it right now is gone in a second, replaced by new water. But is it really new? Not at all. It's all just part of the same single river. And that's how we're meant to see ourselves. The atoms that make up our bodies, the thoughts that flow through our minds, they're not separate and isolated. They are constantly flowing, all part of one single, universal ocean of matter, energy, and consciousness that connects absolutely everything. And this all builds up to this incredible yogic concept of so-hum. It's a declaration, and it means I am that. It's the ultimate realization that my individual soul, my Atma, isn't separate from the universal spirit, from the entire cosmos. It is the entire cosmos. And the man who laid out this entire journey for us is the author Shriram Sharma Acharya. He wasn't just a philosopher. People saw him as a spiritual scientist who spent his whole life making these ancient ideas practical for finding real peace in our modern world. So we want to leave you with this final question. If you really start to see yourself not as the temporary garment, but as the immortal soul wearing it, not as the sheep, but as the lion, what's one thing you would do differently tomorrow?